The list did not accuse him of anything. It didn't need to. It was just a document. Black text, white background, names arranged in columns, no explanations, no context. But when Adrian Holloway saw his name on it, he understood something immediately. This was not about truth. This was about proximity. By the time Adrian's phone started ringing, the damage was already done. A board member resigned before speaking to him. A donor issued a statement without asking a question. A journalist used the word alleged as if it were mercy. The list didn't say Adrian Holloway had done anything wrong. It only placed his name close to someone the world had already decided to hate. And that was enough. Before we continue, if you're drawn to stories where reputations collapse faster than facts can keep up, consider staying with us. This isn't a story about innocence or guilt. It's about what happens when judgment arrives before understanding. Adrian was in his kitchen when the first article dropped. He was barefoot. Coffee untouched. The headline didn't use his name. It didn't have to. Prominent figure appears on disgraced financier's list. His phone vibrated again. This time, it was Silas Mercer. Adrian didn't answer immediately. That hesitation would matter later. Silas had been in Adrian's life for over 30 years. College roommates, early business partners, best man at Adrian's wedding. Silas was the one people trusted because Adrian trusted him. That trust had never been questioned. Until now. Adrian, Silas said gently when the call finally connected. I just saw the news. Adrian said nothing. I'm so sorry, Silas continued. This is insane. You know that. I know that. Adrian stared at the counter. You saw my name? He asked. Yes, Silas said quickly. But it doesn't mean anything. That was the first lie. By noon, Adrian's assistant resigned. No explanation, just an email. I can't be associated with this. Associated. That word would follow him everywhere. The emergency board meeting lasted 12 minutes. No one mentioned guilt. No one mentioned evidence. They talked about optics, risk, continuity. One board member cleared his throat and said, Until this settles, it's best you step back. Adrian nodded. He was already stepping back. Reporters didn't ask him for comment. They didn't need his side. They had the list, and the list had authority. That evening, Adrian's wife asked him a question she didn't want answered. Did you ever meet him? She said quietly. Adrian hesitated. Not because the answer was complicated, but because he knew what hesitation sounded like. No, he said. She nodded. But something had shifted. Late that night, Adrian opened the leaked document again. He scrolled past his name and noticed something strange. The formatting around it was different, as if it had been added later, as if someone had wanted it noticed. Silence is not empty. It is crowded with assumptions. By the second day, Adrian Holloway stopped checking his phone. Not because the calls stopped, but because every vibration felt like a verdict. He sat in his study, curtains half drawn, laptop closed. For the first time in 20 years, he had nowhere to be. That absence felt louder than any accusation. His publicist drafted a statement. It was careful, measured, useless. Mr. Holloway denies any wrongdoing and has never engaged in unlawful conduct. Adrian read it twice, then once more. No, it sounds like a confession, he said. The publicist didn't disagree. That evening, Jonah Pike called. They'd built their first company together. Jonah didn't ask how Adrian was doing. He went straight to logistics. I need to distance myself, Jonah said. Temporarily. Adrian waited for the apology. It didn't come. At midnight, Adrian returned to the document. The list. He enlarged it. zoomed in. The formatting irregularity still bothered him. His name sat between two others. Different spacing, different font weight, not obvious, but deliberate. Adrian had spent a lifetime reading contracts. This wasn't an accident. He searched his inbox. One phrase, private flight. The results startled him. There was one email from 8 years ago, from Silas Mercer. You should come along. Purely social. Nothing formal. Adrian remembered declining. He'd been busy, fundraiser, family obligation. He never thought about it again. Until now. Adrian called Silas. This time, Silas answered immediately. Hey, Silas said, I was just thinking about you. That email, Adrian said. A pause. What email? The invitation. Another pause. Longer. Silas laughed lightly. Oh, that. Nothing came of it. Adrian said nothing. Silence pressed in. You told anyone I accepted? Adrian asked. Silas inhaled. No, he said. Not of course not, just no. Adrian noticed his wife stopped leaving her phone face up. She didn't mean to. But habits change when doubt moves in. That night, she slept facing the wall. Adrian hired a forensic analyst. Off the record. Quiet. Within 48 hours, the analyst found something disturbing. The leaked document had been altered. Not massively, precisely. And names inserted after the original compilation, only a few. Adrian's was one of them. Who had access? Adrian asked. The analyst hesitated. People who paid, he said. At 3:14 a.m., Adrian received an anonymous message. No greeting, no signature, just 7 words. Your friend bought you a place. Reputations don't collapse all at once, they erode, grain by grain. The forensic analyst returned with more. A financial trail, not direct, never direct. Shell accounts, charitable pass-throughs. A consulting firm that didn't consult. The payment had been made 9 years ago. Quietly. Enough to buy access. Enough to buy edits. Enough to buy a name. Adrian stared at the final line. The firm's controlling interest traced back to one person. Silas Mercer, his closest friend of 12 years, the man who toasted his wedding, the man who named his first child's godfather. At first, the motive didn't make sense. Silas already had money, influence, reach, but envy isn't about need. It's about comparison. Adrian's last venture had eclipsed Silas's empire. Press attention shifted. Invitations changed. Doors opened for Adrian that closed for Silas. And Silas noticed. Silas had done something clever. He didn't destroy Adrian publicly. He positioned him, placing his name among worse ones. Letting implication do the work. No accusation, no headline, just association. Adrian asked Silas to meet. Neutral ground, private room, no phones. Silas arrived smiling. Too calm. You look exhausted, Silas said. I've been framed, Adrian replied. Silas didn't ask how. That was the answer. I never touched those people, Adrian said. I never went anywhere near that place. Silas nodded. I know, he said. Adrian felt something cold move through him. You know, he repeated. Silas leaned back. None of it had to be true, he said. Only plausible. Silas didn't shout, didn't gloat. He explained. You would have survived, he said. A dip, a scandal. You're resilient. Adrian stared at him. You bought my ruin, Adrian said. Silas shrugged. I invested in balance. Adrian recorded nothing, but he remembered everything. Silas stood to leave. Don't push this, Silas said softly. The more you dig, the more you stay linked to it. Then he added, some stains don't wash out, even if they're fake. The next morning, Adrian's foundation lost 2 donors. By afternoon, 3 boards requested his resignation. By nightfall, a publisher cancelled his book. No explanation. None needed. At 11:47 p.m., Adrian received another anonymous message. Different number. Different tone. He didn't act alone. Adrian stopped thinking in terms of betrayal. Betrayal was personal. This wasn't. This was infrastructure. The anonymous contact reached out again. Encrypted this time. A single sentence followed by a location. You were not the target. You were the solution. The location was a parking garage beneath a closed courthouse. Adrian almost didn't go. Almost. The man waiting for him sat in the back of an old sedan. Late 50s. Careful posture, eyes trained on mirrors. I work logistics, the man said, not operations. For who? Adrian asked. The man smiled without humor. For people who make lists matter. The list was never meant to be evidence. It was leverage. Names were placed strategically. Some guilty, some clean. The mix was intentional. Truth blurred faster that way. If everyone's suspect, the man said, no one's worth defending. Silas had paid for placement, but he hadn't written the rules. There were brokers, fixers, editors, men who understood that reputations were cheaper to destroy than to investigate. They needed someone credible, the man continued. Someone whose fall would legitimize the list. Adrian felt his stomach tighten. You, the man said. A pause. You were insurance. Why tell me? Adrian asked. The man shrugged. My pension was frozen. I thought I'd do one honest thing. He handed Adrian a flash drive. Truth, he said. Too late to help you, but maybe enough to hurt him. Adrian watched the footage alone. Payment confirmations, email chains, audio fragments. Silas's voice was there. Calm, precise. Undiscussing Adrian's placement, like a line item. Adrian could release it, expose Silas, but the footage referenced the list. Again. Every mention dragged Adrian's name back into the same sentence. Truth would not separate them. It would bind them forever. Adrian showed his wife everything. She listened, then closed the laptop. I believe you, she said. That was not the same as staying. That night, Adrian drafted a message, not to the press, not to the police, to Silas. I know who you paid. The reply came instantly. Then you know why you won't speak. Adrian didn't sleep, not because of fear, because of calculation. Silas's message wasn't a threat. It was a reminder. Adrian finally understood the balance. If he spoke, the story became louder. If he stayed silent, it faded, but never vanished. Silence was survival. Speech was war. But Adrian chose neither. He leaked selectively. No names, no list, only process. An op-ed published under a pseudonym described how reputations could be purchased into scandal, how lists were edited, how guilt was manufactured through proximity. The piece went viral. For 12 hours. Then came the counter-narrative. Think pieces appeared overnight. Conspiracy culture. Disinformation coping mechanisms. Another fallen man refusing accountability. Adrian's pseudonym was quietly unmasked. The article reframed. It was no longer about corruption. It was about denial. Clients withdrew. Partners stopped returning calls. A board member resigned to protect the institution. Adrian watched his life detach, one contract at a time. No confrontation, no accusations, just absence. His wife packed slowly, not in anger, in grief. Our son hears things, she said. Adrian nodded. That was enough. Silas called for the first time in years. No greeting. You're hurting the wrong people, Silas said. Who am I hurting? Adrian asked. Yourself, Silas replied. Then softer. You were never meant to survive this intact. Silas finally admitted it. Not directly, but enough. Adrian's name wasn't chosen because it was disposable. It was chosen because it was believable. Clean history, public trust, quiet ambition. The list needed someone like you, Silas said. Someone people wanted to believe was guilty. Adrian had one move left. The flash drive. Not the footage, the metadata. The timestamps tied payments to edits, to platforms, to journalists. Releasing it would collapse more than reputations. It would implicate institutions. A third message arrived. No sender. The just coordinates. Adrian didn't go. An hour later, the building at those coordinates burned. No casualties, just proof. Adrian uploaded the files to a dead man's server. Not released, scheduled. If anything happened to him, the data would surface. He closed the laptop. For the first time in months, he felt calm. Because now the machine had to keep him alive. Adrian woke up to silence. Not the peaceful kind, the controlled kind. Nothing dramatic changed. That was the danger. His phone still worked, his door still opened, his credit cards still cleared. But every movement felt anticipated. When he took a different route to the grocery store, a black sedan adjusted 2 turns later. When he logged into his email, 2 unread drafts vanished before he could open them. Protection had arrived, uninvited. 2 men came to his apartment, and no badges, no threats, just calm voices and expensive coats. "We're here to make sure you stay safe," one said. The other smiled, thin and tired. "Safe from who?" Adrian asked. "From yourself," the first replied. They didn't ask for the flash drive. They already knew where it was. They wanted something else. Time, silence, cooperation. "If nothing happens to you," the second man said, "nothing happens to anyone else." It sounded generous. It wasn't. Adrian would keep his life, a smaller one. No interviews, no publishing, no travel without notice. His name would remain stained, but stable. Not forgiven, not destroyed, preserved, like a specimen. "People don't want the truth," the first man said. "They want closure." "And what do I get?" Adrian asked. The second man hesitated. You get to watch your son grow up." That ended the conversation. Adrian agreed. Outwardly. Inside, something collapsed. He had survived the fire, only to be locked in ash. Every day felt borrowed. Every breath felt monitored. 3 weeks later, an email slipped through. No sender. Just a subject line. "I know you didn't do it." The message was short, precise. It referenced details Adrian had never shared publicly. Someone else had been watching, not to control, to understand. Her name was Mara Voss, independent, discredited once before. She had chased a different scandal years earlier, lost everything for it. "Truth doesn't protect you," she wrote, "but it does connect the broken." Adrian knew what replying meant. Surveillance would tighten, privileges would shrink, but silence had already cost him everything. He typed one line. "I can prove it." Then he waited. Mara replied in 90 seconds. Too fast. She was ready. She had been waiting. Outside, the black sedan idled longer than usual. Inside, Adrian felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not hope, alignment. 2 ruined people moving toward the same truth. And that terrified the machine far more than a single man ever could. The first rule was distance. Mara insisted on it. No meetings, no calls, no patterns, only encrypted fragments sent at irregular hours. Truth, she said, survived longer when it didn't look like truth yet. Adrian sent metadata, not files, patterns, dates where edits spiked, payments that preceded mentions, names that appeared together too often to be coincidence. Mara built a map, not of guilt, of behavior. And behavior always told the real story. 2 days later, Adrian's internet slowed, then stabilized, then slowed again. A subtle test. Someone was measuring his patience. He didn't react. Mara told him not to. Reaction is how they locate the threat, she wrote. Mara published nothing. Instead, she shared a single data point with a rival journalist, one who hated her, one who wouldn't trust her word. Only the numbers. The rival dug, then stopped, then dug deeper. The infection had begun. Within a week, Adrian received an anonymous file. Not from Mara, from inside. A junior analyst, maybe. Someone who had seen too much. The file confirmed what Adrian suspected. Names had been added retroactively, removed selectively, curated for impact. The narrative started to wobble. Just slightly. Headlines didn't retract. They reframed. New questions emerge about list authenticity. Experts debate reliability of compiled records. It wasn't vindication, but it was movement. Adrian's son asked him a question. Did you do something bad? Adrian didn't answer right away. He knelt. I told the truth, he said. The boy nodded. That was enough. Mara warned him. When systems feel threatened, she wrote, they offer someone up. That night, a minor public figure confessed. Tears, apologies, a neat ending. The media moved on. The larger story nearly died with him. Mara refused to let it end there. She prepared to publish, not the list, the mechanism. How reputations are manufactured. How guilt is edited. Adrian knew what that meant. The protection would vanish. One last call. Silas sounded tired. They'll survive this, Silas said. No, you won't. Neither will you, Adrian replied. Silas laughed. That scared Adrian more than anger ever could. Mara scheduled the piece. 72 hours. Adrian's dead man server remained armed. 2 clocks ticking. 2 different endings. Only one would reach the public. The first sign was the bank alert. Adrian's account didn't freeze. It adjusted. Limits lowered. Transfers delayed. Access narrowed without explanation. The system never slammed doors. It narrowed hallways. A routine review appeared in his inbox. Tax authorities. Compliance officers. Old contracts suddenly questioned. 8 years of silence became 8 years of scrutiny. Mara warned him. They're trying to exhaust you, she wrote. People confess just to sleep again. Adrian stopped sleeping. One by one, the quiet allies vanished. Emails bounced. Numbers disconnected. Encrypted keys expired early. Someone was closing windows, not all at once, enough to make escape feel impossible. A minor outlet published a vague piece. No names, just a question. What if the list was edited? It didn't trend, but it reached the right desks. Phones rang. Meetings moved behind closed doors. Adrian's son's school called. Concerned voices, uncomfortable pauses. Other parents have questions. Adrian understood the message. Pressure the father. Break the witness. Silas called again. You can still walk away, he said. Disappear cleanly. And Mara? Adrian asked. A pause. She made her choice. That was the answer. Mara sent the draft. It was devastating. Not explosive, methodical. It didn't accuse. It explained how reputations were purchased, how enemies outsourced destruction, how truth became collateral. Adrian approved it. Without edits, he armed the server fully. 3 releases, 12 journalists, automatic, no human mercy left in the chain. If he vanished, the story lived. The building alarm went off at 2:14 a.m. Not smoke, gas, controlled. Adrian grabbed his son. Bare feet on concrete. Sirens came late. Too late. They expected panic. They got documentation. As emergency crews worked, Adrian's phone vibrated. Mara, it's live, everywhere. The article spread sideways. International desks picked it up. Not because of Adrian, because it named the method, and methods threaten everyone. The morning after the release felt wrong. Too quiet, too orderly, no arrests, no denials, just statements that said nothing. A spokesperson appeared at noon. Calm voice, neutral tie. There is no evidence supporting these claims. No mention of the documents, no explanation of the methods described. They didn't argue the facts. They argued relevance. By evening, the tone changed. Not, is this true? But why now? Adrian watched it happen in real time. Panels, experts, former insiders speaking vaguely. The question wasn't guilt, it was motive. Articles began listing Adrian's past. Business disputes, old lawsuits, personal failures stretched thin and wide. Nothing false. Everything framed. Truth used as camouflage. People he'd known for decades stopped calling. Not out of hatred, out of fear. Association was radioactive. The message came at 3:27 a.m. from an unknown number. She won't be testifying. No signature. No threat. Just information. The most dangerous kind. Adrian tried everything. Hospitals, airports, and back channels that once answered immediately. Doors closed politely. As if he were already gone, Silas sent a single message. You've proven your point. Now stop. Attached was a contract. No money, no apology, just immunity. For Adrian only. His son asked a simple question that night. Did you do something bad? Adrian couldn't answer immediately, because the truth was heavier than innocence. I did something costly, he finally said. The dead man's switch activated again. Not the full archive. A slice, focused, surgical. It named no names, only patterns, and one pattern matched Silas perfectly. Markets reacted, boards convened. Quiet resignations followed, not public, not dramatic, but permanent. Adrian received a final file, sent by Mara. Time-stamped hours after her disappearance. One line of text attached. If they erase me, I make it loud. The file Mara sent was not explosive. It wasn't dramatic. It was careful. That alone told Adrian everything. The file contained timelines, flights, payments, shell foundations. Nothing sensational, just structure. It showed how reputations were selected, how access was purchased, how damage was outsourced. And at the center of the web was Silas, not as a predator, as a broker. The final page explained motive. Adrian had refused a merger 5 years earlier. A quiet no, a polite decline. Silas lost billions in projected influence. He never forgot. Some men don't seek revenge. They seek erasure. Adrian didn't leak it. He published it. In full. No commentary, no narration, just the data. He removed himself from the story entirely. They couldn't ignore it, but they wouldn't amplify it either. So they reframed it. This is a complex dispute between powerful individuals. No victims mentioned. No moral framing. Just noise. Adrian's accounts were frozen. Pending review. His passport flagged. Administrative delay. His son was sent home from school early. Parents were uncomfortable. Silas finally called, voice calm, almost kind. You could have walked away, he said. Adrian didn't argue. I did, he replied. Just not in the direction you wanted. Weeks later, a report surfaced. Accidental overdose. No suspicious findings. The timeline didn't align. But no one challenged it. The world had moved on. Adrian was never charged, never cleared. His name became unusable. Boards avoided him. Banks stalled him. Friends remembered him quietly. He was free, but unemployable. Years later, Adrian stood alone, at a coastal overlook. No cameras, no audience, just wind and water. He thought of Mara, of the truth she believed in, of the cost she paid alone. The truth didn't win. It survived. And survival, Adrian understood now, was not justice. It was endurance. History would not remember him as innocent or guilty, just inconvenient.